to stay in their own homes for a longer period of time. When people become partially disabled, it's helpful if maybe they only need a few hours a week from someone. Meals on Wheels is one of the ways, but other health care providers, instead of forcing them to go to a retirement home, let them live in dignity in their own home. And that's why we're supporting an opportunity to use those same dollars that would have been used in a senior center to be used as individuals come into your own home and help care for you, help your families care for you in dignity.
Thank you, Governor Schweitzer. And a response from State Senator Brown.
Well, our greatest generation needs help at all times because, you know, they deserve our attention. And I am fortunate enough to still have my parents alive. They're both in their 80s, and health care is a big issue for them. That's why I have proposed a health care task force to look in all of the areas of health care and see what better ways we can do so. And on top of that, I agree with Mr. Jones in that we need to lower taxes. You know, a lot of our elderly people are in their homes, they've paid off their mortgages, and yet their taxes keep going up, their property taxes do. They shouldn't be in a situation where they have to sell their home that they've lived in for generations just to pay the taxes on it. I want permanent long-term property tax relief for Montanans across the board.
All right. You want to respond?
That's right. And the taxes that went up the most in Montana during the previous 10 years before I was elected governor was the taxes on people's homes. And the reason is because the previous administrations had actually, in real dollars, cut funding for K-12 across Montana, forcing local communities to increase their share. Now, when local communities increase their share, it means that they increase taxes on homeowners. And we actually gave the greatest tax relief to homeowners in history by sending $400 back to every one of those homeowners in Montana. And when Mr. Brown says he supports permanent tax relief, most of the people here and everybody in the legislature knows, and he knows, that no legislature can pass any tax bill that is binding on the next legislature. That my $400 that I proposed and we passed and he voted against, that we sent to homeowners across Montana, is just as permanent as any other tax policy that a single legislature would pass. When someone says, I propose and I want permanent tax relief, you can't legally bind the next legislature to your priorities. Those are the facts.
Would you like to respond to that, State Senator Brown?
Governor Schweitzer likes to call that $400 check a tax relief. What it is a partial refund of an overpayment in taxes. It was a one-time only check, and did any of your property taxes go down? No, they went up.
Thank you, State Senator Brown. Before we leave that topic, Stan Jones, anything you want to add?
Well, I just want to make a general statement. We've talked about government providing for education, for health care, for the aged, for housing. Let me ask you a question. What is socialism? Socialism is where government provides all the benefits. They take care of the people. Do we want socialism in this nation? Would you rather have lived in East Germany or West Germany? Would you rather live in North Korea or South Korea? Would you rather live in Cuba or Miami? Would you rather live under socialism? Because that's directly where we're headed. Would you rather live in Eastern Europe or Western Europe? They learned, they failed. Socialism fails. And the only difference is who pays for it. None of this is free. You pay for it through taxes in a socialist nation, or you pay for it yourself in a nation that is free of taxes and allows you to work and be self-sufficient.
Thank you, Stan Jones. We're going to move on to the next topic now. That question is going to come from Sally Mock, and the first response is going to go to Stan Jones.
I'd like to go back to health care if I could briefly, and I think I know how Mr. Jones is going to answer this question, but there's only so much states can do to help with this problem, but our listeners would like to know if you support a federally run universal health care system, and if not, what is your favorite proposal to make sure every Montanan has the health care they need?
We're starting with you.
How could you guess how I would answer that?
Took a while.
No, I do not favor universal health care. Right now, 50% of the health care bills are paid by the government. 50%. We almost have universal health care. We're getting closer and closer all the time. What happens when you have a single payer to a service that's rendered to the public? Who's going to determine how that institution is run if you have a single payer? Well, the single payer is the government will run health care. And you will not be able to talk to your doctor and discuss what you should have. You're going to have to talk to a government bureaucrat who's sitting in the room to talk to the governor, and the bureaucrat's going to decide what kind of health care you get. Is that what you want? Because that's what you'll get with universal health care. No, I'm not in favor of universal health care.
Thank you, Stan Jones. Response now from State Senator Roy Brown.
Thank you. There's no doubt that health care costs are a major issue in Montana. And if anybody tells you they have all the answers to this question, they're just not telling you the truth. That's why I want to bring together a health care task force of people that are involved in the process to come up with good free market ideas. And good ideas like small business pooling so we can get our insurance rates down, like transparency and pricing of medical procedures, like incenting insurance companies to give rebates to people that do wellness programs, and like tort reform that reduces defensive medicine. One of the biggest increases in cost in medicine is the doctors doing defensive medicine to keep themselves from getting into frivolous lawsuits. I fought very hard for tort reform. And while I'm fighting for tort reform, the governor is talking at the American Trial Lawyers Association in Philadelphia.
Thank you, State Senator Brown. And a response from Governor Schweitzer.
We have a health care system that's not sustainable, and anybody who owns a $2 calculator can figure that out. We've been increasing our wages in this country around 2.5% to 3.5%. Montana a little faster than the rest of the country, but still, health care costs have been increasing at between 8% and 14% per year. And so the ability for the family to be able to pay for those increasing health care costs continues to reach further and further from their ability to pay. And so what happens? Around 20% of the people in Montana don't have health insurance, but they still get health care. They get the most expensive health care. They walk into the emergency room where health care is the most expensive. They don't get their wellness checkups. They wait until it becomes catastrophic. Wait until it has reached a serious disease before they walk in. That's why I believe that this country has to work on a universal system, because we cannot be competitive with the rest of the industrialized world. All of them who are manufacturers have a universal health care so that everyone is offered health care at a minimum rate. We need to work on this, and I don't think we need to form a commission. This needs to be nationwide, and the next president is going to bring us universal health care. And if he doesn't, shame on that president.
Before we leave this issue, gentlemen, Sally Mock, a follow-up for Governor
I just want to be clear. There's one nay, one yay, and one...
You know, universal health care will lead to rationing of health care services. We cannot... well, we have the best health care system in the country. We have the best health care system in the world. And people come from all over the world to come here for a reason, because it's the best. If we do what we're talking about here, it will not be the best anymore.
Thank you.
Stan Jones, you want to follow up on that?
If you add government to the formula, you have the doctor, the cost of the doctors, the nurses, the hospitals. Then you have the cost of the insurance. And we will have insurance if we have universal health care, believe that or not. Why? Because they are the ones that are putting money in the pockets of the politicians. Yes, we'll have the insurance agent. Then we'll have a layer of government bureaucracy. Add up the cost of that. What are you going to get? You're going to get health care that costs 5 times what it should cost. Let the free enterprise system work like it used to. I was born 10 miles west of Bozeman in a house my dad built, and the doctor drove to the house and delivered me. And we didn't have to pay that much. I've never heard what the bill was. But think of a doctor that's willing to do that. Will you have one of those today? No, I don't think so.
Thank you, Stan Jones. We're going to move on now to our next student question this evening, and that's going to be from Noah, and the first response is going to be for Governor Brian Schweitzer.
I'm Noah Harbour. I'm a junior in music education. My question is, burdened with debt, close to half our graduates leave Montana every year for work. What will you do to develop attraction in-state jobs for Montana college graduates?
Well, I think we have a pretty good record. We've increased the number of jobs in Montana by more than 50,000 during the last 3.5 years, the largest increase in the history of Montana in the shortest period of time. And wages are increasing third fastest in the country. But at the last Labor Day report, we found something that was very interesting. We are actually increasing the numbers of jobs in Montana for people with degrees and advanced degrees. So we're creating the jobs in Montana in the medical profession, in information technology, in biotech, in alternative energy. Our concern right now is we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. Our problem is we need more young, trained Montanans to graduate and get to those jobs because we're bringing them from outside of Montana to fill those jobs. Quickly, graduate and grab one of those jobs. Montana is growing at a very fast rate, and we have jobs available, but those jobs are available for people that have skills. And for those of you who are studying science and math in particular, study engineering, any of the sciences, the jobs are unlimited in Montana. We cannot fill those jobs fast enough, and we can't fill medical jobs fast enough. Those are places that we're creating jobs at the fastest rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And a response from State Senator Brown.
Thank you, Noah, for that question. And I've answered this question several times already, but I want to say one more time that Keep Our Kids Here tax credit is exactly what we need to do what you're talking about. Not only that, so many of our teachers are moving to Wyoming, and they can't get jobs here. We are exporting our greatest natural resource. Our students from our university system are going elsewhere because they can't afford to stay in this state with the low wages that we have and still pay off their debt. So we have two situations here. If you're a teacher, you can get a teacher signing bonus and stay here in Montana. If you are with high student loan debt, which most of you will be when you graduate, here is an opportunity to stay in Montana through the Let Us Keep Our Kids Here tax credit. So I'm looking forward to you staying right here in Montana and having a job and raising a family and growing a career right here in this state.
Thank you, State Senator Brown. A response from Stan Jones.
Keeping the graduates in Montana is a good goal. I don't see the high-tech jobs that you're talking about, Governor Schweitzer. They're not here. They're not in Montana. We don't attract high-tech companies to come and establish themselves in Montana because of the tax situation here. We tax companies too high. There are too many taxes on the companies that exist in this state. If you have a company that has a national market or an international market, they're going to establish themselves in a state where the taxes are lowest. Now, we have jobs from companies like Target, Costco, low-paying jobs, because their market is a local market. They're retailing to a local community, so the competition is not that great internationally. So they will establish themselves here, and that's the kind of jobs that we have in Montana. We have to change the structure of the tax system to attract high-tech companies to Montana before our students will stay here.
Thank you, Stan Jones. We're going to move on to our next topic, and that question is going to come from Sherry Devlin, and the first response will go to State Senator Roy Brown.
Because of the national economic downturn, Montanans and Montana business people are cutting back and making do these days. Everywhere they turn, costs are going up, while take-home pay is staying the same or declining. What will you do in your first year as governor to help Montana businesses and families with tax rebates, tax cuts, job development, retraining, or other specific initiatives?
Well, thank you, Sherry, for that question. You know, if you'd listen to the governor, you would think that we have the greatest economy in the world right here in Montana. And we could have. But well, I think maybe that he's out there gathering up those out-of-state donations instead of talking to the people in Montana. The people right here sitting across these And I've been to every corner of this state, and when I sit around their kitchen table in their coffee shops, they're saying that they're worried about gas prices, they're worried about food prices, they're worried about utility costs, and every day when they open the paper, there's another discussion about layoffs. We have to change that. There was an article in the Sydney Herald that a company was looking at coming to Montana, and a project was either going to be built in Montana or North Dakota. The executive at that company said, even if everything was the same, if the cost of the project and all the various parts of that project were the same, they would still build it in North Dakota because of the regulatory environment and the anti-business status in this state. That has to change, and that will start from the top with real leadership from Governor Roy Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Governor Brian Schweitzer, a response?
Sherry talk is one thing, and I'm glad that Mr. Brown pointed to North Dakota and their energy policy. During the last 3 years, North Dakota has invested $125 million new dollars in refining capacity. $125 million new dollars in refining capacity. And during the same time period in Montana, because of our regulatory and tax environment, there's been $1.5 billion invested in refining capacity. So people can talk about tax and regulatory environment, but follow the money. Where are the multinational companies coming? Our oil production is going up faster than North Dakota's. The refining capacity is being invested in Montana at much faster multiples. And the Tax Foundation, gentlemen, has found that Montana has the 7th most business-friendly tax policy in America. I'd like to be number 1. 7th's not bad, but we're a heck of a lot better than North Dakota, and the dollars prove it. The checks are coming to Montana, not North Dakota.
All right. Thank you, Governor. I'd like to get a response from Stan Jones.
The economic turndown has greater roots than just in the state of Montana. The biggest problem we have with our economy is the Federal Reserve. It's neither federal, and nor do they have any reserves. It's a private corporation owned by the international bankers. It's not a government organization. The president gets to appoint the chairman of the Federal Reserve from about 7 people that the Federal Reserve select for him to choose from. So they keep it in the family. That is an unconstitutional organization to control our currency. And that is the reason that gas prices are so high, because inflation is taking place in this nation. Oil is bought and sold in terms of dollars. And the more dollars that you throw out into the world, naturally the higher the prices will be. And that's why we're paying $4 at the pump for gas. So we have to get control of the Federal Reserve. What would I do? This might sound extreme, but I would introduce a gold and silver currency for the state of Montana.
Thank you, Stan Jones. Sherry Devlin has a follow-up before we leave this.
I would like to know from Governor Schweitzer and Senator Brown, what specifically would you do in your first year or your first year of re-election in office to help these Montana families, though? What specific initiatives would you propose?
Help yourself.
All right. The first thing I would do is get rid of the business equipment tax. It is a disincentive for businesses to come to Montana to grow and expand. This will mean more jobs in Montana. We're the only state around this region that has a business equipment tax. I would lower property taxes across the board. I would work on workers' comp and get that whole situation straightened out. You know, the governor likes to quote a lot of statistics about business friendly from various organizations that no one's ever heard of. But Forbes ranks Montana as a business-friendly state 42nd, and that is down from 37 from the year before. That's not where we want to be.
Governor Brian Schweitzer, in response to that?
Actually, I have proposed getting rid of business equipment tax. In 2005, we proposed it in Senate Bill 48, and it would have excluded 30,000 small businesses, and my opponent voted no. There have been 2 opportunities There have been two opportunities to decrease the business equipment tax. The first one decreased it for 30,000 businesses. It passed. In the last session, we proposed to eliminate the business equipment tax for $150,000 and under. For all of the businesses in Montana, there would have only been 3,000 businesses left out of 44,000 that would pay any business equipment tax. What Mr. Brown isn't telling you about the business equipment tax is this. 75% of those business equipment tax dollars go to the local counties. So it wouldn't come, that revenue wouldn't come to the state anyway, and the state would have to somehow make Sydney whole, would have to make Forsyth whole, make Billings whole. I understand that he supports the oil refineries, and he would like to decrease their business equipment tax by hundreds of millions of dollars. But what will the Yellowstone County Commissioners do for revenue? That money doesn't even come to the state. He needs to visit with county commissioners across Montana. They'll tell him, we support keeping a business equipment tax for the top 3,000 businesses in Montana and eliminating it for the rest of them,
Governor,
like I've proposed.
That's time.
Thank you.
State Senator Brown, one more response here, and then we'll have Stan Jones.
What the governor also fails to tell you about the business equipment tax is in 2005, he took the trigger out that would have made the tax go to zero. And all he did is raise the exemption. The tax would have gone to zero on every business in this state had he not done what he did. At the same time, any reduction in the business equipment tax will of course mean that the local governments that won't receive as much money will have to be reimbursed by the state in that regard. And we did that the last time we lowered the business equipment tax, and we will again.
Let's stop right there. One more word from Stan Jones, and then we're going to close.
Okay. You have some good ideas, but you're not going far enough. Deregulation and decreased taxes. Over the last 4 years, the budget of the state of Montana has increased 60%. 60%. The budget has increased over the last 4 years. That's unconscionable. We have to reduce taxes. We have to reduce spending. We can no longer afford to spend ourselves into oblivion. That's why this state is not prospering like it should be prospering. Get government out of the way.
Thank you, Stan Jones. Gentlemen, we've reached the end of the hour, so we now have time for closing statements from each of the candidates. Each candidate will receive 1 minute to make their closing statement. The order was determined earlier today, and we will begin with State Senator Roy Brown.
Well, thank you very much. So what can you expect from Governor Roy Brown? Well, I'm a workhorse, not a show horse. And you won't see me at the Kentucky Derby going to a fundraiser when we are in a critical portion of the legislative session. You won't see me talking about election fraud at the American Trial Lawyers Association. What you will see from me is the most open, honest, and accountable government that Montana has ever seen. You know, I have a vision for Montana, and it's a vision of a strong economy coupled with a healthy environment. It's a vision where our well-educated college graduates find great paying jobs right here in Montana. It's a vision where government is better, not bigger, where it's less intrusive in our lives. It's a vision where our strong traditions of faith, family, and freedom are respected, protected, and defended. And I want you to join me in that vision, and we will build a better Montana. And I will be honored and privileged to serve you as your next governor. Thank you very much. God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, State Senator Brown. Our next statement will be from Stan Jones.
We've talked about a lot of issues tonight, and I think that most of those issues are fodder. The real issue is preserving our liberties in this nation. We used to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. Freedom House International is an organization that rates the freedom of nations throughout the world. We are 32nd on the list now. We are not a home of the free. The Supreme Court, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It's the people's law. It's the law that the people imposed on the government. It's designed to secure our freedoms, our liberties. Democrats and Republicans have abandoned the Constitution. We must decide now if we, the people, should surrender ourselves to to more control and dependency on the government, or if we are confident enough in ourselves to reclaim our heritage as a free and self-sufficient nation. And it starts right here in Montana, with a governor who will stand up to the federal government when they cross the line of the Constitution. Don't waste your vote on a Republican or Democrat again. I will bring you smaller constitutional government, but I need your vote.
Thank you, Stan Jones. And a closing statement now from Governor Brian Schweitzer.
Isn't this great? A democratic republic where citizens can come and see 3 other citizens who are proposing to be your governor. The Y generation, the generation who I believe will be the greatest generation, here in large numbers. People have proposed that the greatest generation would be my parents' generation who won World War II and split the atom. Some have said that the boomer generation who are involved in the Apollo project are the greatest generation. But this generation has the greatest challenges of all, to create a clean and green energy system that is American, designed by American and produced by American workers, a food production system that is both sustainable and healthful, and a health system itself that is sustainable. These are the greatest challenges that our country has ever been faced with, and the Y generation, the generation that is here in large numbers, those that are 18 to 28 years old, are up to the challenge, and that's why we will invest in the future. We'll invest in education. We'll continue to cut taxes for Montanans. We'll continue to grow jobs in Montana, and we will make Montana the alternative energy center of the planet. Thank you very much, and God bless everybody.
Thank you, Governor Schweitzer. State Senator Brown, Stan Jones. We'd like to thank That concludes our evening. We'd like to thank the candidates for coming here tonight and discussing the issues. We'd also like to thank the students and our journalists for the questions that they posed this evening. We'd like to remind all of our viewers and listeners to please participate in the process, register, and vote. Thanks for everyone from all of us here for joining us tonight. Good night.
America.